More than 80% of people want to die home. 79% of palliative care patients prefer to die home. Why is our system still falling short? Dr. Ira Byock is a palliative care physician. The 4 things that matter the most.
I began in palliative care before the phrase was even being used. And I saw so many people who were suffering needlessly and died badly. I understood the sources of their pain. As life evolved, I ended up doing 2 things. The large majority of American patients with far advanced illness are still at risk.
Welcome to KhanKlinics, your dedicated space for exploring the vital connections that shape your well-being. Here we dive into everything from achieving peak physical fitness by mastering sustainable weight management to optimizing your diet for a vibrant life. We're passionate about uncovering the power interplay between your mental and physical health, offering you insightful strategies to nurture both. Join us as we unlock the secrets to embark on your self-confidence and your inspiration by interviewing the top-rated personalities, not from only the US, but around the world. At KhanKlinics, our commitment is to bring you evidence-based information that inspires you to confidently control your health journey and live your life to the absolute fullness. I'm your host, Amir Khan. Let's get ready to unlock the true potential of being a human with the most amazing people around us. We live in a time when death has become a medical event, not a human experience anymore. More than 80% of people want to die home, yet nearly 60% still die in the hospital or long-term care facilities. 20% staggering get their wishes fulfilled. The gap between how we want to die and how we do this is growing ever so bigger every day. A comprehensive study in Sweden found that 79% of palliative care patients prefer to die home there. They achieved a staggering 76% of people achieved their wish. A high congruence is attributed to the involvement of the palliative home care teams. The evidence doesn't stop there. A large Canadian study or over 230,000 patients revealed that early access to palliative care significantly reduces the unnecessarily hospital visit, unnecessary end-of-life squibble, a more peaceful event, and a personalized experience as well. If the data is this much clear, why is our system still falling short? It's time we rethink, not just how we die, but how we care for our patients. Welcome to another episode of KhanKlinics. I'm your host, Dr. Amir Khan, and today we have the privilege of speaking with one of the most respected voices in the field of end-of-life care issues, a true pioneer in humanizing how we die. Dr. Ira Byock is a palliative care physician, a best-selling author, and a public advocate for transforming care through the end of life. He's the founder and chief medical officer of the Institute for Human Caring at Providence St. Joseph Hospital and a professor of Emeritus of Medicine and Community and Family Medicine at the Gesell School of Medicine and Dartmouth. Dr. Byock has been deeply involved in hospice care since 1978. He's the past president of the Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine from 1996 to 2006 and led the National Promoting Excellence in end-of-life care program funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. His books include Dying Well in 1997, The Four Things That Matter the Most, 2004, and just has celebrated its 10-year anniversary edition. And then The Best Care Possible, 2012, a bold critique of America's approach to serious illnesses. Dr. Byock appeared on CBS 60 Minutes, NPR, On Being, The Diane Ram Show, PBS NewsHour, and multiple other shows on TV nationally and internationally. He challenges us not to just think about how we die, but how we live, how we connect, and how do we need to care. Dr. Byock, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khan. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Why palliative care medicine, a field often avoided by many of the doctors? Why this specialty, Dr. Byock?
Oh boy. I began in palliative care before the phrase was even being used. Back in my residency and family practice in 1978, I recognized that while we did a great job in this county health system affiliated with the University of California at San Francisco, people who were acknowledged to be dying were often got second-class care. They were in the hospital literally put down the hall, ostensibly for their privacy, but frankly because they made the rest of us feel uncomfortable. We didn't know what to do for them. And I saw so many people who were suffering needlessly and who died badly. At the time, Dr. Khan, I felt like this was not only a lapse in our commitment to excellence, but also kind of a social injustice, as if they stopped mattering as much simply because we couldn't cure them. And so, I don't know, it wasn't really by design. I just started moving toward these people to listen to them, to make sure I understood the sources of their pain or their GI upset or whatever else, their breathlessness, and doing whatever I could to alleviate their physical distress, but also allow them to be, comfortable physically and to the extent I could emotionally. I was an odd duck, frankly, in my community as a physician. This was something that nurses did, that women did. It was about, skin care and bowel care and mouth care, but also some sophisticated symptom management. In many other communities in America, there were also odd duck doctors who were trying to do this, working closely with nurses. And at some point, we started to come together and meet together. And out of those meetings back in the early 1980s, we coalesced what has become a full medical subspecialty of hospice and palliative medicine so that we can give the very best care possible to people through the end of their lives.
What an amazing transformation. First of all, I want to congratulate you and your colleagues because it was so much needed. And we today at the back end are looking and in a way experience the good side of things. I'm sure it must have been an enormously challenging journey. Tell our audience a little bit about what were the challenges that you faced. I mean, it's really shocking to hear you describe, hey, you have a loved one, he's dying, and he's just put in the corridor. And all the medical fraternity is sort of like ignoring that patient, not intentionally, but just by design, how we were processing the information. You brought about that awareness. You and your colleagues have done a marvelous job, especially in the last decade. Please explain a little bit about the challenges and how did you come across to address them?
Methodically. We got resistance at every path, particularly at the beginning. This was intended to be a nursing discipline, we've been told. We got no respect from the academic colleagues, and many of us were working in academic centers. But gradually, we started publishing papers, I myself included. They were, at the beginning, they were simply case studies or reviews of the literature about treatment of pain and the use of opioids, or the differential diagnosis of breathlessness in somebody with advanced cancer or heart failure. And gradually we started doing some research, simple research. What medicines worked better? What combinations of medicines could you use? And over time, because we were doing the sort of the hard work of just building the I-beams, if you will, the ethical and clinical I-beams of caring well for people who were not expected to survive. Out of this, we began to get a little bit of respect. And I found myself invited to different communities and then to, national meetings. And we wrote the proposals and were able to present at specialty conferences, including, emergency medicine and internal medicine and oncology care and ultimately pulmonology. And I know you're a pulmonologist. Let me say that Roger Bone, who was one of the fathers of contemporary pulmonology, was an early adoptee. He later died himself of cancer, and through that time was writing and speaking about the importance of really bringing the same commitment to excellence that we do when we expect to cure somebody, including in the ICUs, to when we acknowledge that this person is facing the last months, weeks, even days of life. Gradually, we developed momentum. And in 2005, we actually petitioned the American Board of Medical Specialties to become a subspecialty. There were 11 sponsoring specialty groups that created pathways for their certificate physicians to apply for the additional subspecialty certificate. Pulmonology, again, thank you very much, being one of those. So it's been a long haul. And, you mentioned that from 1996 to 2006, I directed a national program for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, providing grants and technical expertise to programs that were building palliative care programs within mainstream medicine. That's what RWJ Foundation wanted us to do. So we had grantees, 4 grantees that were NCI cancer centers. We had 2 children's hospitals, and I could go on. And all of those, we built models of integrated palliative care within mainstream healthcare. And I think, frankly, that project, which was a 10-year, ultimately over $25 million project, started the nidus of what we now look at as palliative medicine.
It's been an amazing transformation. And then once again, I think on behalf of everyone and especially the medical fraternity, we want to congratulate for doing such.
Well, thank you very much, but I don't think we've accomplished our goals by any means, because, if you scroll forward now from the 1980s to 2025, while some people are getting superb care through really good palliative medicine and really good hospice programs, the large majority of American patients with far advanced illness are still at risk of having their needs unmet, suffering unnecessarily, and frankly, dying badly. That transformation of American healthcare to what we know we can do, we have the knowledge and skills now within our medical systems to provide reliably excellent care. For many people, it's still not happening.
And I agree. I think I myself, and as a practicing physician, has probably been more spoiled because we work in an environment, sometimes in an ICU, sometimes in the floor, where we've got excellent support. And It's just a matter of time where your spiritual fathers are there, your chaplains and your mullahs and your mosque people are there. You get the nursing support. It's just an amazing transformation what we see nowadays. But You're right, the work is not done, and I'm sure we can always argue there's a lot we can contribute and a lot we can do. I just want to quickly move on to the next question, and that is about dealing with this heavy duty work. What I mean by that, this is a very emotionally heavy loaded work. It's not easy dealing with deaths, a remote attachment with the family members or the patient. And especially for a lot of times in the medical field, people who are caring for those people can have some dire consequences. I want to get your take on what are your rituals and habits, and what are the things you do to keep yourself grounded when you are seeing and involved in care, especially patient care, and the process of grief and loss, and mechanisms that you have set up or you would recommend someone to follow?
As a clinician, as a physician, I took on my profession knowing that I was going to be meeting people at some of the most difficult times of their lives. It was part of my expectation going into the discipline. And while I thought I was going to be a rural family doctor, as life evolved, I ended up doing two things. One was practicing emergency medicine, and I ended up getting boards in emergency medicine. And along the side, always doing some hospice and gradually what we now call palliative care. This was, I went into it with my eyes open, and I went into it myself with a knowledge that this was going to be at times wrenching. As you know, when you care well for somebody who is seriously ill, whether or not they die, you often become close with them and their family. You know them as a person, not just as a set of problems on a problem list and diagnoses to be addressed. Certainly that's true in hospice and palliative care. So, we walk close to the fire, and that heat that we feel, that emotional heat, we have to deal with. For me, it is to breathe through it, frankly, to make space for it. My own centering technique, frankly, is, and I tell myself this more than once every day, is Ira, that's my first name, Ira, keep your heart open, remember to breathe. And I try to not close off, but to accept and feel the empathy, and that means feeling the suffering, allowing my heart to be stretched, but to just breathe through it and to stay present. When I teach medical students and residents and fellows in palliative medicine, I ask them to show up, lean forward, and just breathe. Feel your feet on the floor and just be present. We're here to serve. It's not incumbent upon us to completely relieve suffering or to fix these problems. We're here to listen, to do what we can to make things a little better. And in that process, frankly, although it takes a toll often, we're also filled up. That's the part that's not often mentioned, that this is life enriching for those of us who have chosen to serve. We get to be part of some of the most intimate, profound times in the life of a person and family. And you have to understand that too, that willingness to move towards suffering also not uncommonly pays you back in the most profound of human experiences.
That's pretty powerful. Keep your heart open and remember to breathe. We're going to take that as a very powerful statement. And then we can't cure, but we're going to make those little things better and alleviate a bit of the suffering. And that's what we're trying to do and achieve. And it's a little step, but yet a very important one. Thank you for explaining that. Ira, let's go to, I want to just get another perspective from you, and that's just generally about life. From someone who deals with death a lot, define how you would say what's a meaningful life, and what's your definition that changed with your work? How would you sum it up together?
I mentioned that I started my medical career thinking I was going to be a rural family doctor, and I trained at a very tough, program for rural medicine where I learned what we used to call cradle to grave family practice, right? Mm-hmm. Taking care of pregnant women, delivering babies, doing my own neonatology, pediatrics, all the way up to geriatrics and dementia care and end of life care. And that sort of life cycle and family systems perspective on human caring is with me today. It prepared me very, very well for work in hospice and palliative care. So I look at how can people develop through this time of life. In family medicine, I learned about Piaget and Erickson and Abraham Maslow, the human developmentalists. Right. And that developmental framework I've tried to write about as it applies to the very last stages of life. That's what you mentioned my first book, Dying Well. That's about human development through the end of life, told through stories of real people that I had the privilege of knowing and caring for. Although it starts with my dad's story. Chapter 1 is my own father's illness and dying. He taught me about growing through the last stage of his life. In that human development and family systems model, the ultimate goal of caring for someone at the far edge of life is for them to feel well within themselves, even though the physical part of them is deteriorating, is the biological parts of us, decline and die. But the emotional, interpersonal, and spiritual dimensions of the human person can actually expand and deepen. What I've written about throughout my career, I'm still writing about, frankly, is the phenomenon of well-being, of feeling well within oneself, right with the world, right with others, right with your God or nature, even as you know you are leaving this life. That's the way I look at my own personal life, and that's what I've tried to provide for the people who have become my patients and the patients' families.
We'd love to hear more stories. And one specific one that I want to ask is about, you encounter a lot of deaths, you see, experience. Are we ever ready to die?
Some people are ready, sure. Many people aren't, because they think that the worst thing they can think about is dying, so they put it off. I don't want to think like that. I hear, wives say to their husbands, "Oh, Ralph, don't talk like that. You're going to get better," even though Ralph knows damn well he's dying, and everybody knows he's dying. And Ralph would like to talk about it because it's what is most meaningful to him. There are people who understand, and I help try to counsel people, that there is this notion of life completion, of making sure on any day there is nothing critically important left undone or unsaid between you and the people you love. Do they have the authority to speak for you with doctors or the hospital or health system, that you can give them that and prepare by giving them a power of attorney for health care or an advance directive, which gives them unquestioned authority to make decisions on your behalf if you can no longer speak for yourself? Do they know your passwords? It seems funny, but can they close your bank accounts? Or are they going to have to go to a probate court and cost thousands and thousands of dollars to get the authority to speak for you? Give them your passwords. If you're on Facebook, for heaven's sake, give them your Facebook password so they can close your account or post about your dying. And then, is there anything important left unsaid between you and someone you love? We'll hopefully talk about that. That's what I wrote about most extensively in the book, The Four Things That Matter Most.
It's so interesting that you bring in social media and you want people to be ready and talk about and say, hey, there's an end of life. And I want to phrase it like how you phrased it. You said it's the end of the chapter or end of the road, and we're not ready, and we don't want to think that way. Why is that? Why aren't we prepared, or why don't we want to think about that?
I think contemporary mainstream American culture, many people are unprepared. But within that multi-ethnic, multi-religious tapestry of American society, there are pockets of people who
Very
are
small.
well prepared.
Very small people are prepared, and I guess very highly intellectual people would be looking at the demise road.
You'd be surprised. You're mostly right, but there are Buddhist communities that pay a lot of attention to preparing for the end of life. I've seen preparation in Mormon communities who come together, care for one another lovingly, and are much more comfortable talking with one another about the end of life. There are pockets of this practical wisdom that unfortunately our kind of commercialized culture tends to not honor as deeply or not learn from as much as we could.
But it could be, Ira, that a lot of people are scared, and
Sure.
it's compounded by the fact that lot of religious or even non-religious notions, a lot of academia on religion, scare you of what is going to happen after death, and they are challenging the person, try to avoid as much as they can, because there is going to be a big rigorous process afterwards, and people don't want to go through that,
So
thinking
I
that,
know what happens after somebody dies, right? After you die,
yeah,
people think about you. They miss you.
sure,
They remember you, right?
absolutely.
They wonder if there was anything left unsaid or undone. They think about how you were cared for and how you died, and they wonder there may be well, we should have done it differently, or I wish we had done this rather than that. Most of the time, they wish they had focused more on people's comfort and quality of life rather than on helping them live every possible moment of the very last minute of their life. So while knowing what happens after somebody dies, in my estimation, is not mystical or metaphysical, in a social interpersonal way, we can do so much to live fully and to help those that we leave behind
Mhm.
feel that there was nothing left unsaid, that they know how much we love them, how proud we were to be their mom or to be their dad or to be their spouse. We've asked for forgiveness for the times that we screwed up, hurt their feelings, misdeeds. We've forgiven them for the times when our feelings were hurt. Those are the things that we can do now. Oh, and we've told our stories.
Yeah,
Most of us will leave grandchildren who may never have heard our stories of where we grew up and what we did, and what we did for a living and what we loved to do when we weren't working. And if we had a previous marriage, they may not know anything. Grandchildren may not know anything about your first marriage. All of that stuff, we can give them the gifts of knowing who their grandparents were. By these days, it's trivially and easy to record your stories. I encourage families, I give them workbooks to help interview their parents or grandparents, to get some of these stories down so that their grandchildren and generations they'll never meet can hear their stories in their own voice. No one else on the planet can give those gifts.
absolutely. So it's such amazing perspective you have. That's very, very fascinating. If there's anything that constitutes a good death, and we got to strive towards it. And of course, before we go into a good death, the four things that should matter the most when we're living, of course, and before we encounter a good death.
So I can answer both of those in one answer.
Please do.
First,
That's what, yes.
I really don't like the phrase good death, because I think it conflates death, which is beyond life, which is a lifeless state, with dying, which is a part of the human life, which is part of living, right? I don't know anything about death, Amir. I've never been there,
Yeah.
right?
No one.
But I know a bit about dying because I've sat at the bedside and journeyed with accompanied people who were dying
Sure.
many, many times. One of the things that allows a person to die well, my phrase rather than good death, and hear that phrase dying well, not just as, well, that's the best way to do it, or it's better than dying badly. Yes, that's true. But hear well as an adjective describing the person that they can be well within themselves as a whole person, even though they're in the last months or weeks or days of life. What undergirds dying well is having a feeling that there's nothing left undone or unsaid, and that you're right with other people, the people you love. The four things that matter most, I learned from patients and families mostly, are things that people can say to one another before they're forced to say goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
The four things are four sentences, four statements. Please forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
I forgive you.
I forgive you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me and I forgive you, because there hasn't been a perfect relationship in the history of the species, probably. Even the most close and loving relationships sometimes have misunderstandings and hurt feelings and sometimes real transgressions. So please forgive me, I forgive you. Thank you and I love you is usually like stating the obvious to people. But boy, is it ever important, is it ever valuable for a father or mother to say that to a child, for an adult child to say that to a father or mother who's elderly, to a spouse to say that to one another. That is also a gift that keeps on giving. And I would only say that you don't have to wait till you or someone you love is dying to say those four things. As you know, as a critical care physician, some people are critically ill and die who were well that morning. As an ER doc, I saw that happen quite frequently. So today is a good day to say, please forgive me, I forgive you, thank you, and I love you to that spouse or child. And I, as somebody who's written about this and teaches it, I've had to practice it in my own life. And I can just say that there's a lightness that comes into one's relationship, a sense of celebration of the joy of just being together when there's nothing critically important left unsaid between two people who love one another.
Thank you for explaining that. Powerful words and a powerful message, and definitely a powerful book to read. So you've written about forgiveness and gratitude at the end of life, and you believe that these values should be present, instilled before you die, of course, and should practice these, like you just mentioned, in everyday life. How would you go about and say to our viewers, how could they incorporate them in their lives? What are the little tips or any tips you would give to them and say, okay, these are actually very essential things. They're a lot of times undermined. You don't have the time. You don't realize why they're important, but yet they are very important.
These things are important because many of us feel them, but we don't say them because they're awkward to say. We hold back. We hope that the other person knows that we want forgiveness for the times that we've messed up, and that we love them and that we're grateful to them for being in our lives. But the fact is that sometimes it's important to say things out loud, even if it's stating the obvious. And the way to start, because I think the hardest thing is to start to say it. We've done it today. Your viewers, our viewers or listeners now can say, I heard this fascinating conversation the other day on the KhanKlinics podcast. And there was this doctor on who suggested that all of us should practice saying four things to one another to enrich our lives. Please forgive me, I forgive you, thank you, and I love you. And he said, while these are important when somebody is facing the end of life, even if we're simply admit that we're mortal, they're important for us to say for our own emotional well-being. I've tried to teach these four things as a bit of practical wisdom that I've learned from caring for people facing the end of life, that I brought forward and found has been of value to people at any time in their lives. So just having listened to this conversation is a great conversation starter for people to say these four things to one another.
I do want to ask one more question, and that is about your advice, first of all, to your audience and families and other people, including about what should they be doing, preparing, or thinking about life. What sort of advice would you like to give to them so they can take home a take-home message from Ira?
I think that it's important to attend to the fact that everyone we love will eventually die. And we may be, in fact, part of caring for them through the end of life, and that we will eventually die. Face those issues. Deal with the practical matters of that we mentioned briefly going forward. The having a will and an advance directive, and saying the things that would be left unsaid, and recording your stories, and all of that, giving someone you love authority to speak for you if a time comes when you can't speak for yourself. I know you will find that once you've done that, there's a little bit less anxiety about everything that you do, frankly. And then my basic attitude toward life is to live fully, uh, be joyful. The best, most healthy response to the fact of dying is to seek joy, seek well being, honor and celebrate life and your relationships, right? That living as fully as possible is the best response to the predicament of being mortal.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Byock, for sharing your wisdom and reminding all of us that even in the face of death, there is room for healing. There is important times that you gotta contemplate, keep making those important connections, and have meaning in life. And don't forget to share your feelings with everyone else. You don't want time to run out. Thank you for being with us.
It's really a pleasure.
What a remarkable journey we've just experienced together. The path to health isn't always straight, but it's always worth the effort. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your wellness journey, armed with new knowledge and a fresh perspective. If today's episode left you inspired, share it with people, someone who need to hear this. Give us a thumbs up and your opinion. Keep exploring, keep evolving, and we'll see you in the next episode of KhanKlinics.